In your day-to-day spiritual life, does ancient Egyptian thought and religion play a particular role?
It's a day-to-day spiritual life.
In your day-to-day spiritual life, yeah.
It's interesting because I play for the church, for my church. I play for a Baptist church, play music for a Baptist church. And yeah, there are some contradictions, especially that whole story about Pharaoh and Moses and all that, you know, of Moses, who was actually Tutmosis, as people who are familiar with Egyptology would know. The way they make the Egyptians out to be the villains. My Sun Ra had remember that song Sun Ra used to do? Sun Ra had a whole soliloquy talking about I Pharaoh called I Pharaoh, and it's the same music as Mayan temples. Dun, 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 dun. And he says, I fed these people for 7 years, and they left me. They left me, and it's Sun Ra does a soliloquy, taking the side of Pharaoh, who felt he was miscast as a villain when he took care of that lost tribe of Israel for 7 years. Who are us? African Americans. And says, oh, will you be my people now? Because they left. So, will you be my people? And he'd go out into the audience, will you be my people now? Will you be my people? So yes, Sun Ra did a whole dramatic, what we call a cosmodrama on that. So so when I'm in church, it's sometimes some of the philosophies or theologies involved with Christianity I have problems with because of my understanding that the religion or the theology of ancient Egypt is the root of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. You know, for example, the 10 Commandments comes from the 47 principles, and the 47 principles began with I have not done this and this, not thou shalt not, but I have not done so and so and so and so and so. So in that way, in terms of my spiritual life, I do. It's always a little bit of a conflict for me because my vision of God is the Son as Ra, and that was his original title. The first concept of God was the Son, and his name was Ra, or in his I can't think of the word, in his different phases. You know, one was Ra when he's high in the sky. Horus was when he was ebbing, and there are others. I'm not an Egyptologist, but I know that there are different phases of the sun and Ra, and so I do think of that. When I go to church, I do think of that. It's always in the back of my mind. Am I in conflict? I mean, I took communion today, but in my heart, you know, Amen. Amen comes from Amen Ra. Okay, so and I owe that understanding to my tutelage under Sun Ra.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
That was wonderful, Doc.
All right, so the next question.
You gotta say it loud.
Oh, yeah. So the next question, I'll get a little closer. As you know well, The ancient Egyptians believed that the sun god would be reborn every morning. They also believed the living could contact the eternal spirits of the deceased who reached the afterlife. In that respect, do you feel as though you were both in contact with Sun Ra?
Yeah, but I seem to contact. It comes in a different form, dream or shadows. I used to have more of them in the early days of maybe 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago. Always a shadow past my door. Always, and when I was doing all his music, trying to revise all his music and build a new band. So every time I feel that, I would get the combination of how he put music together and stuff like that. So it's a spirit thing, which I believe in, because I transmolect myself to another place and I'm still here. You see, and I had two in my lifetime. I had two of those spiritual things of transmolecting myself somewhere else and knowing what they doing there. And there's a distance between, you see. So I go by my feelings, the spirit of things.
Yeah.
You see. So who am I? See, to not or to, believe or not. It's just, I believe something because it pushed me to do Sun Ra's work that I promised that I would do, to carry on the Sun Ra tradition and new stuff. Not that I understand everything, but then I leave that to space of our life. You don't know what the UFOs are that they call the UFOs, but you still see them and you know what they are. So it's the same like me. I understand by the spirit, but what I know is going in that different direction that the spirit can take me. So he always taught me to deal with the spirit, the real thing, instead of knowing. So I don't know nothing, and I feel the spirit because his shadow would come past my door when I was doing things right.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the way I feel today.
That's really amazing.
So he wrote a song. That's the way I feel today.
There you go. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that?
The room that I sleep in was the room that Sun Ra, when he didn't sleep, he was an insomniac, but when he would rest for a couple of hours, that was the room he would rest in. And I remember one time I looked at this big mirror in the room, and I looked in the mirror, and it was Sun Ra's face in the mirror. I remember that. Every now and then, he comes to me in my sleep, usually associated with the band, So it's very comforting. Every now and then, he comes to visit. So like I said, that's when you know that you're doing something right. You don't even know what it is that you're doing right, because most of the time I spend most of my time doing things wrong. know. But every now and then I stumble on something right, and some Sun Ra or somebody else in the band comes by to visit me in my sleep to let me know, you're on the path.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right. So in the 70s and 80s.
Speak loud, please.
Oh, sorry. In the 70s and 80s, you guys performed in Egypt. The orchestra performed in Egypt. Can you tell me about the trip? How was it to be in Egypt? Did you see any ancient Egyptian museums or sites? And how was that experience?
My greatest thing was to go to the pyramid, and so we had the hotel at the foot of the pyramid that we stayed in, so we could look up. That the climb goes up, from down there and to the pyramid. So we go in, and Sun Ra and a few other fellows went up in the chamber where they had to crawl up to the King's chamber. I stayed down at the bottom where the mummies were in the pyramid. So I didn't want to go up there because I get kind of crawling through a hole, I could kind of shook a loose a little bit. So anyway, they went up to the king's down, and I was down with the mummy on the base floor. And so Sun Ra got permission to dance on the Sphinx with the dancers because they was rebuilding and digging and stuff. And the army was there keeping people. You couldn't go in there, so we got special permission to dance on the pyramids and the Sphinx. So that was like, oh man, it's a feeling that it's so my experience and things. Then we had to go out to the step pyramids and across the desert, and we was on a camel named Moses. Me and Sun Ra was riding this camel for 4 hours out and 4 back up to the step pyramids out in the desert and stuff like that. And that was all amazing,
Yeah.
That was the vibrations of the pyramid.
That's amazing. Did it feel like you were going to you were part of the source of the inspiration of the
So
music?
the lights went out when they were going up to the chamber. So Sun Ra called Ra, and the lights came back.
It was 7 times, 9 times.
That's amazing.
So I wasn't with them. I was down at the base because I was thinking about going a little hole and claustrophobia stuff. I said, well, I'll wait for y'all to come back. Yeah, with the mummies. Yeah, that's the thing. But anyway, they were up there and the lights went out and he called out Ra's name. And the lights came back on. Everybody was amazing. But they went up to the chambers, something with all the stories about it. Yeah.
I'm sorry I don't know this because I didn't write the question, but Noel, were you a part of this trip as well?
No, I missed all of Sun Ra's trips to Egypt,
Okay.
but I did visit Egypt with my life partner last year.
Oh, wow.
And the experience was totally different from what Marshall experienced, because that area has descended into being a tourist trap, basically, and we were constantly harassed by the merchants, but the vibrations were very strong there. As close as I could get was to dance in the parking lot outside the park, And even then, the security came over and took me over. I said, wait a minute, this film's of my leader dancing on the pyramid itself. You know, this is films, it's documented films, because the tour guide at that time is the present Minister of Culture, was Sun Ra's tour guide at that time. Yes, he now Minister of Culture. And then as soon as I said that, they left me alone and then started on my girl who was doing wet paintings and Egyptian style inspired paintings and stuff like that. But it was the vibrations there, was I can't describe it, you know. And one thing that they did say, everybody who saw us said, "Welcome home." So the people recognize who we are.
Yeah.
You know, as African Americans, they know that we are the original Egyptians.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So at the foot of the pyramid was the Mina house. The old Mina house made of wood. And we stayed there. They had hammocks and things. Oh, I said, that's where presidents and dignitaries have been. But they were building a new Mina house next door. So we stayed, so while they were building on that, we stayed in the old one, which is all wood and all that. See, at the foot of the pyramid, you could say, you sit in the shade, it's cool. You walking out of the shade and the sun is like hot. Yeah, beautiful experience. It's amazing. So I know all the things that we've done there. It was so many.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things that they welcome us, and they welcome Sun Ra as Sun Ra.
Can you give an example of one of Sun Ra's theories on ancient Egypt and Nubia that maybe specifically resonates with you? Is there anything that specifically sticks out?
Well, what's the song we do on the Nile?
Sunset on the Nile?
Yeah.
On the River Nile. Yeah, that, I used to cry when we were doing that song on tour, because I could feel that when he was singing Sunset on the Nile, that's why we don't do that song, you know, because he was Sunset on the Nile, he was speaking of his own sunset. Yeah, I could feel it, and I would cry during that song.
Yeah.
Because he did this like several years before he started having his strokes. Yeah. But say the question one more time.
It was any of Sun Ra's theories on ancient Egypt that still resonates with you. I think that answers it.
Yes, the main one was when he explained, because he was the first one to inform me that the African Americans our ancestors were forced out of Egypt by the Romans, and we went and then forced out of Egypt and migrated to West Africa, and there we were different from them. So they enslaved with the wars, and we were captured and put in bondage and sent over to America. So he said, I think he said at least 70% of African Americans are actually descended from the ancient Egyptians. And that resonated with me very much. And then whenever I would look at not just Egypt, but when I go to the British Museum and see the artifacts that they've stolen there, they all look like me, or they look like my son or my cousin, or they all look like even there's a recent Dutch artist took Nefertiti's something of it was Cleopatra or Nefertiti and Akhenaten did computerized makeup from the skeletons, because they had the skeletons of what these people look like, and they look like any brother or sister. Well, as a matter of fact, Akhenaten looked like Gilmore. Gilmore did look like Akhenaten. Yeah, it's like Gilmore. It was like Gilmore. It's on YouTube and stuff. You can see it on the net. But they got this computer expert who does facial recognition and reconstruction, and with the computers, and he reconstructed from the skeletal remains of Nefertiti and Akhenaten and what they actually look like, and they look like any one of these brothers and sisters walking out.
Wow.
Yeah. So that always resonates with me, you know, and I can't wait to go to, you know, Aswan and Luxor and all that, because that's when we will really see the evidence of the, in the statues and the features of the statues that haven't been defaced.
Yeah.
Well, he was constantly talking about all those things, and I was a student, and I used to answer him, and then he told me, "You're not listening." That you have to feel what he's saying. Have to the spirit. So I'm not all calculating in my head about what's what. And that's what he taught me, and then I had this I know attitude.
No, you can have it because
See, but then when he began to talk and tell about these different things, it was this is a I know, and the spirit I don't. Which is it? And so I set up. I never know anything. I quit asking some questions that is obvious. You see, and though, because until I could bring the balance from the spirit to what I know in the balance. You see, so my problem was I know, and therefore I could not understand all the things and believe everything. But as time goes by, those things he said came true. You see, and then I learned that I was right, you know, in the here, but wrong here.
So the music of Sun Ra and the orchestra has inspired countless other musicians. New generations of musicians continue to turn to ancient Egypt and Nubia in their music for inspiration. Do you think that this music is part of the tradition that arguably starts with Sun Ra and the orchestra, or do you think it's just a different thing?
It's a creative music. The Creator gave you a gift, and you play the creative music. And the Creator will send you to this band people who also seeking, you see. And that's where the music was. We could not understand the music. We had to be taught all these things to understand. And when you understand, when you're on the spirit side, and he was saying all these messages through the music. That's why all his lyrics are they'll quote him on his poems.
Yeah, you see, that's an interesting question. On one hand, yes, because the awareness clearly comes from their contact or their finding out about Sun Ra. But what the difference is, Sun Ra was a master, and he had so much esoteric knowledge on so many. He was a scholar, okay. He was a spiritual being, and he was a master musician. And so he literally was able to channel the spirit of ancient Egypt through his music, which clearly is why your department, Jatali, sees that and acknowledge that. The people coming up, while they appreciate and have a deep affinity for the knowledge of Sun Ra, unless they've done the research and had different types of experiences or studied under a master, it's difficult for them to reach that center of depth that the orchestra is able to inculcate. Because the orchestra at its base is a spirit. We play the spirit of music. It's not just an intellectual endeavor because I philosophically believe this, as some people do. Some people are gaining quite big names for themselves as progenitors of this so-called Afrofuturist movement. But there has been none of the type of vision that Sun Ra had. And so it's a compliment to Sun Ra, it's an acknowledgement of him. Whether or not they are really progenitors of what Sun Ra started, I have not really seen or heard any progenitors of this music outside of maybe somebody like Pharaoh. Despite their inspiration.
Yeah.
I admire their efforts, but I've heard nothing to grab my attention. Yeah. No, sorry, I didn't do it. But then, how can I? After Sun Ra, there is no other. But yes, they will be classified in the line of so-called Afrofuturism, which originated with Sun Ra. But are they really progenitors of the spirit of that? That remains to be seen.
Okay. And the final question I have, do you have any opinion on how Egyptologists write about ancient Egypt and Nubia? And what do you think about the way that modern day museums present ancient Egypt and Nubia?
Oh, they got so much stuff there, and they know much more about it than I do. But they have so many things at the museum. When we were at the museum, they have found many different things since then. We was there in 72 or something. So it's amazing because they had all these little carved out figures. Yeah, we played like it was big case full of things. Perfectly carved. So what can I say? That just imagine all of those things made me feel so small and out of it. Until my knowledge of things is one thing, and the spirit of it is another. So for me, it was that I had to bring this that I don't know out and use it to make a better music, better planet, no matter how small.
Yeah.
You see. So for me, it was I really needed something, and that's what I need, and that's what I do. you know. I depend on that, and I don't know anything because that was holding me back from really doing the vibrations of the day, which is different from today as it is tomorrow. Be different. So all those things in Egypt we were playing. What were we playing? At the museum, and the statues moved, and boy, we ran back out. Yeah, something felt like something come alive, you know.
Yeah.
It was very strange. So everybody was scared a little bit, but we kept on playing. Because that we don't know what we think we know, and it's altogether different in the other spiritual world. And then you come up on it, and what can you do? So that's the way I feel today. I don't know what's happening. I'm going by the spirit, and I don't try to know anything, because what you know today is obsolete tomorrow.
I think that's a great place to stop.
Um,
Or do you have thoughts on that?
yeah, I definitely
I
do.
forgot.
Okay, first of all, there is, okay, I got one word, or one name, Sheikh Ant Diop. Now, there are many so-called Egyptologists who do not agree with Sheikh Ant Diop. But him, Dr. Ben Jokanan, Dr. John Henry Clark, Chancellor Williams, these are people who did, especially Sheikh Ant Diop. He is our number one representative. And because, I mean, we still, you turn on TV, you look at a cartoon which depicts the Egyptians or Cleopatra, and you see these Europeanized figures. And there's been an ongoing effort to Europeanize the ethnicity of the true Egyptians, who did not become European until the Ptolemy, the Ptolemy. But before that, it was all African. Egyptians were Africans, and there's still that tension. Still, I felt the tension in Cairo when I was there. You know, that I mean, there was I remember we went to, me and my girl, we went to some. The tour guide sent us to a particular art place where the woman, they had tried to convince us that the Egyptians were European. You know, and now I'm a long way from home. I'm not about to get into no argument, so I just kept my mouth shut. Well, look at the pictures. They sure look African to me. My girl would kick me. you know, because I don't want to disappear into the desert. You know what I'm saying? I mean, hey, So yeah, that's number one. And number two is, does anybody come and dig up the grave of Abraham Lincoln and put it on display? Ben Franklin and put it on display? George Washington and put it on display? But you're going to take my ancestors and you're going to dig them out. I'm to the point where I cannot view mummies. I feel it's desecration and sacrilege. These people were buried. The statues are there for you to represent. Why you think they had 7 layers of sarcophagus? But you're gonna strip that all away and put it up there, and come on, man. It sickens me, because they don't do that to nobody else's culture. They don't dig up Confucius or Lao Tse, you know what I'm saying? But they choose to dig up our relatives, our ancestors, and put them on public display, as if it's and it's disrespectful, and the creator don't like that, and they're not going to have any good luck until they put those sarcophaguses and those mummies back where they belong, in the ground, and give them the respect that they deserve. There's that unwillingness to recognize the great legacy that comes out of the African continent, which culminated in Egypt, which is part of Africa.
I think that's a great place to stop.
Well done. Thank you so much.
I think that's, as just a musician from around here, knowing who this audience is for, I think that's all that stuff you said is probably really important for these people to hear. Yeah.
It's the only way we can change anything is to have people be informed.
Yeah.
Because they're being misled so much.